Hello Internet, my name is GothicLordUK. It's been a little while since we've sat down and recorded some of the online poker, but after a short hiatus I've decided it's time to film some more obscure internet games rather than just traditional no limit hold'em cash, which is what the whole world plays, and I'm pretty bad at hold'em, so I thought we would start off with hold'em. But as CarlVHarald has requested, he says, I would like to see some 50-50 action. And that is certainly some action that I am able to bring before we go into the very, very confusing mixed games of draw and stud and stuff. So I've got my PokerStars lobby up on the other screen. And so I'm going to play two $7 50-50s. Not necessarily at the same time. And so we've bought in. So just as whilst this room fills up, this one is a standard speed one, and if this goes for a reasonable amount of time, I will probably do a turbo one directly afterwards as part of this video. Before we get started on this 50-50, I think I'm just going to informally call these videos Reddit requests, possibly or fill the requests that have been put into the first request post that I put on our poker sub forum, and we will do Reddit requests for about 7 episodes, I think, and then maybe go out back online and ask for some more. But that's all by the by, whatever that means. I know people say it, I've never really understood. But this is a $7 no limit hold'em sit and go of the 50-50 variety, and what that means is every player buys in for $6.60 if you do not include the rake. Half of that money is given to, is this correct? It's been a while since I've done one of these. No, so I thought it was half of the buy-in is automatically put into the final prize pool and you play for chips for the remainder, but that is not indeed the case. I'm glad I checked. And so what happens is, wait, no, I'm being really stupid. I was correct the first time. Ignore me entirely and start from scratch. This is a 50-50, and so every player buys in for $6.60. There are 10 players, and when the 6th player busts and there are 5 players remaining, each player receives $6.60 plus 22 cents for every 100 chips you have remaining in the tournament. And so what these used to be was you would buy in for $6.60 and 5 players would win $13.20, doubling their money. But there were some collusion issues and some cheating issues, as it were, and so they found this method to be a lot more fair. And it does, to some degree, add a little bit more skill, because rather than just trying to slowly trip over that final barrier of, oh, I'm just going to get the money and I'm going to double up my whole stack, you want to accumulate as many chips as you can, because that means that you are going to have more of a payout at the end. And so, indeed, we have gotten started on our first game. I always sit right next to where my action buttons are, just because that's how I've always done it. Excuse me while I have a short drink of water. And so already we've got a raising war in the under the gun and under the gun +1 seats. It went, I think it was 3x and then a fair bit more. We've got ace-5 versus ace-10. Ace-10's probably going to win, or we can chop 2 pairs, 6s and 9s with an ace kicker. And so very good to know that these guys are very loose and apparently hate money. So let's get back into some form of competency. So as we said, 50-50, players are trying to survive to the top 5 seats to get paid, where they will receive $6.60 and then 22 cents for every 100 chips in their stack. And so theoretically, if every player doubled their 1,500 chips into 3,000 chips, then that would be 30 times 22, which is... oh, head, do math. $6.60 on the nose, so that math works out. Of course, you do have to try and get at least 300 chips to end the game, because that way you account for the rake that you've already paid. Obviously, you don't want to be losing out to the rake, but hopefully, if you're a reasonable player, you won't be busting the bubble with only like a big blind left. You'd hope to have a little bit more than that. And so we're going to be playing very tight in the first level or two, and that is for two reasons. One, we don't want to be speculating too much when we've only got 50 big blinds. That's a standard flip there, and King's going to get it. We don't want to be speculating too much when we're not really that deep, because we do start on a 15-30 level rather than, say, a 5-10 or a 10-20 level. And by being tight now, our opponents should hopefully, if they're reasonably observant, notice that we're being tight in these early stages. And so when we do decide to start playing hands on the 4th level, say, after 15-20 minutes, I'm not sure how long the old blind levels are in this one. Blind levels are 6 minutes, and so after, say, 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so, 3rd, 4th blind levels, when we do start opening, we can open up a little bit looser and hopefully get a little bit more credit for what we're holding. And so our opponents will be more likely, we'll have more fold equity, because our opponents are more likely to give us credit for having a stronger hand than we do. And that's a good thing, because it lets us play a wider range more confidently, especially when finding spots is going to be reasonably difficult. So already we've lost one player, down to 9-handed, and it's our first time in the blind. With 10-3, we're certainly not going to be looking to do anything clever. Obviously, if it gets limped around to us, we'll check and see a flop for free, but I would be dubious to even call, say, a min raise from the button with this, just because unless we flop the world, it's only going to cause us more trouble than it's worth generally, because we'll be playing the rest of the hand out of position. For a 5x raise, we certainly won't be coming along, and so between this player's first hand shove with Ace-8, I think they had, versus Ace-10, check the replay, Ace-5 versus Ace-10, and a 5x and this instant shove, we are going to label this player as a fish, which is my easy fat value tag. A little bit more water, obviously auto-folding deuce tray from the small blind, because even if it folds around to us, I just don't want to be playing that against the blind there. Mr. 4107322673663, I've got my eye on you. And so if this folds to us, we will consider opening from the button, because the two players behind us have not yet played hands, although this guy must have won a small blind somewhere along the line, because he can post and still have 1500 left, so must have won a hand somewhere, even if it was just a walk in that last hand. I was drinking water and not paying that much attention. But with this action, we're not even going to think about it, we're just going to fold and let the table duke it out with their silly shoves with Ace-10. So the last time this spot happened with these two players, it was Healy had Ace-5 and Bussy C had Ace-10, and so you'd expect Healy to be calling with a range of better than Ace-10, but with the chips that they've got, they can fold and still have plenty of life left, and so maybe they are learning something. Again, 8 deuce, we're just going to fold. What people often don't realise when they are, say, new to poker or just haven't studied that much on the game is that a lot of the game is folding. Like, you should be prepared to fold a lot, especially when either you're just not getting cards. You shouldn't think, oh, I'm not getting cards, so I'm just going to get fancy with the rags that I do have, because you are just going to burn money that way. That's not to say that you shouldn't be playing a reasonable amount of your hands. Like, you can play Jack-9 suited from the button, and you can play Ace-10 off from late position, provided that you're the first person opening the pot. You think you have an edge on the players that are still to act, that you don't think that there's players behind you that are 3-betting so frequently that it's going to be negative for you because you're going to raise with a marginal hand and get re-raised and have to fold. Obviously, you're going to have a wider range when there are fewer players, and especially considering in this game we start with 10 players, which is one more obviously than the regular 9 for 9-handed play, we can be reasonably tight, and Healy's is not going to be a very happy boy. And so yeah, there's going to be a lot of folding, and might not make for the most entertaining portion of the video, but as soon as we creep up to that bubble, I'm sure things will be getting a little bit more interesting. And so now we are 8-handed, and to take a little bit of stock on the table, obviously one of these maniac players to our right is gone. All the players to our left are still floating basically at their starting stacks, as are we, and so we can make the observation of them that they are being tight, as are we. We just don't know if they're being tight and are going to get looser as we intend to when the blinds get a little bit larger, or whether they're just being tight because they haven't seen aces, kings, queens, or ace-king yet. Another small observation that we can make about the table, whilst we've not got too much else to talk about, is that we are currently happy that the players to our right have been the players that have doubled up, because traditionally money moves clockwise around a poker table, because the players to the left of the players to the right, which is a stupid thing to say, but we're more likely to win money from, say, Pachos, Bussy and Seto because we have position on them. Apart from the instances when those players are on the button, we get to act after them, whereas we have to act before big string of numbers V577 and Veslin, and so that means that they're going to have position, they're going to be able to make better decisions in the hands that we do play, and we're more likely to lose money, and money will move to the left or clockwise around the table. And so to that regard, we are happy that the money is to our right and not to our left. It also makes decisions easier for us when we are involved in hands with those players, because it lets us be more aware of the effective stacks later on. And it's also going to be fairly important when it comes to things like who we want to get involved with, because traditionally in sit-and-goes like this, and to some extent also multi-table tournaments, if you're on an average stack, you don't really want to be mixing it up too much with the player with a massive stack at the table, because those are the few players that can knock you out. If you're a short stack, obviously that's everybody, and so you're just going to take the best spot you can get. But if you are a medium stack, unless you've got really good holdings, you don't want to be taking jabs at the big stacks. You want to be trying to bully the smaller stacks, because then even if you do get in with the worst of it, or they suck out on you, you've still got chips and you're still alive, which is obviously very important in a sit and go, whereas as opposed to a cash game, we're going to fold here because Queen 6 is pretty terrible, we're in the blind, Seto's got way more chips than us, not even worth considering. In a cash game, as I was saying, you can just rebuy and get more money and go back to exactly where you were, maybe just with somebody else laughing at you because they sucked out on you, and you think, well, if they sucked out on you, that means that they were in the worth math spot. You do that 100 times, you're going to be laughing. This is the first spot where we consider playing a hand. 3x raise is fairly standard, especially from the button. We are out of position. As I said, I'm not a great hold'em player, I don't protest to be, and so really I think we should 3-bet or fold from the blind, because if we just call, we're only going to catch an ace or a queen, and then even still we might not. I just don't like this spot. I'm just going to fold and wait. It's only 20 chips, it's a small portion of our stacks, we're not in danger yet. Maybe that's a mistake, you guys can tell me in the Reddit thread about this video or in the comments below, but what would you do in that spot? Because I'm just being probably being a pussy and not being as active as I should be. But yeah, in a game like this, my life is more important than one small 3-bet pot at the very early stages. So that's just my thought on the process. It's probably bad. And so what I'm going to do, just in this quiet moment, provided we're folding this next hand, King 10, if it folds to us, we might open for 3x. These three players behind certainly haven't been very active. This is basically a min raise, but again, against Seto, he's got far more chips than us, and we don't want to get knocked out. If we catch a king and he's got ace king or something, then we're only going to be hemorrhaging money into a point where we'll have like a much smaller stack to work with. Say you have 800 chips left, that's only 20 big blinds. I'd rather not be putting myself quite in that spot yet. What I said I was going to do is I'm going to pull this table over. This is the replay table, obviously. And we're just going to... So that was the very first time we played, where we got Ace-5 versus Ace-10, and they chopped. I'm just going to quickly replay through the hands and just see who's showing down really bad hands. Can't really complain any there, because they went to the flop with that one. 4 deuce will be folding. And so we'll see Bussy and Seto are winning the majority of the pots because they're raising the majority of the pots. And so none of the 3 players to our left, 4 players to our left, have really made any kind of a move yet so far. And so it's worth being that extra bit cautious when they do first make a move, because generally I find that the first time a player makes a move, it's that first time they've picked up a decent hand. They're not just going to pick an obscure moment to think, okay, I'm going to run a bluff now, just completely out of the blue. Blinds are now up to 25 and 50, and so we now have just less than 30 big blinds, which have just less than 28 big blinds, and so still a decent sized stack with regards to not being short stacked, which would be anywhere between like 1 big blind and 10 is traditionally where you think about shoving. I generally tend to get a little bit more cautious at about 15 big blinds. In my head, there's just only a little bit more play for things like min-raising buttons when you have a bit more money rather than just opening with a shove. But obviously, we are going to be up to... There's a 30-60 level coming up next, and then 40-80 with a 5 ante. And so when that 30-60 level kicks in, we will have just over 20 big blinds, depending on how fast we get blinded out over the course of the next couple of hands. Interesting shove here. You presume he's going to have a better hand because it's harder to make a... no, that's not right. It's harder to call a bet than it is to make a bet. But given it's the first hand that he's played, and he's played it very aggressively, as I said, generally I would have given him credit there. I wouldn't be calling off very light. You don't expect him to, say, be doing that with a club flush draw or something. You'd expect him to have ace-queen, queen-10, set of 8s or something. Certainly something stronger than what Bussy was holding. Otherwise they would have presumably snapped called for not too much more. And so, whilst we're not doing anything, as I said off the start of the video, the way I generated what I'm going to be playing in the next 7 videos or so is I just went to the reddit.com/r/poker subreddit and just made a post saying I'm going to make some videos, what videos do you want me to make? And there have been requests for things like Deuce 7 single draw, fixed limit and pot limit Omaha 8, some heads up sit and goes, 5 card Omaha and 6 card Omaha, and so you can expect to see some videos of those sorts of games coming up in the near future. And then when I've done those few videos off that post, I will probably make another post and see what else people might like me to play. I was hoping they would be a bit more specific and say like, oh, I want to see, I don't know, 50-cent $1 fixed limit Deuce 7 triple draw with 6 players or whatever, but people were just saying, oh, here's a game type. And so 50-50 sit and goes was actually one of the more specific type of hands, or type of games. 8-7 in the big blind. It's suited, which makes it really pretty. It's going to be 62 to get 187, so it's basically 3 to 1. He's been opening pretty damn wide, and if we call, we've still got a decent stack, so I'm actually going to make this an opportunity to see a flop and see if we can't make something happen. We obviously pair our 8s and have a backdoor flush draw. The ace and the jack is pretty bad for us because he can be opening any kind of Broadway cards, and at the very least he'd then have a gut shot, and there's going to be a lot of aces in his range. And so if we call a street here, we're only really hoping to catch another 8 or a 7 on the turn, and so we're not getting the price for that, and so we'll just let that one go. Obviously I'm not using a HUD or anything like that right now. Would generally be quite useful. Okay, we're going to raise with an ace from the small blind here. Player to our left hasn't been terribly active, and we do manage to steal. But yeah, to know things like VPIP, which is voluntary put chips in pots, would be reasonably good to know, because then you're going to see if one of these, say, players... can we steal twice in a row? I think we can. One of these two players that have got the much larger stacks, you might think they're being a bit more active, but then if you check the VPIP, you could see if they are playing 80% of their hands. Appreciably, over such a small sample, it's not definitive, but it's going to be useful to some degree. And so this time he does steal back for his blind that we stole from him previously, and so we will fold to a loss of 100 because we won his big blind from the small blind previously, and then look out for him re-stealing from us in future. So we still need to lose 3 players before we instantly hit the money. The game immediately stops at 5 players, and then the payouts are worked out accordingly. Obviously, if you have, say, like Bussy C here, with 3,000 chips, if the money bubble burst now, he would get $6.60 just for finishing, and then he would get just over $13 for... that's an interesting limp. I'm going to raise because we're certainly not deep enough to set mine. But yeah, for having a 3k stack, he would get effectively 3 buy-ins worth of money back, because he'd have the $6.60 and then 1,500 chips twice, which is certainly a good time. Wait, am I fucking this up again? 6. Yeah, you get... God, I should write stuff down and figure this shit out before I start recording, because this looks really unprofessional and stupid. Not that I'm a professional. 22 cents times 100 chips. I can't do math. My brain has ceased to function. You win 22 cents for every $100 you have. If you have $15, $150, that's $3.30. Yeah, so Bussy C doesn't get 3 times his buy-in because he's got a starting stack and a second stack. He just gets $6.60 for finishing and $6.60 for having 3,000. But if you manage to accumulate a stack of 6,000 chips, then you win 3 times your buy-in. So you win 660 plus 660 again, and 660 a third time. I'm sorry for that terrible explanation and piss poor rant. Fold 10-9 under the gun. Maybe I'll record this one and then record something where I'm a little bit more competent and put that one out first. That'd be a smart thing to do. I probably won't because I'm a poker player, so I'm lazy. But I hope you guys will stick with me through my stupidity at doing really basic math. Poker Inc. bets half pot and is basically pot committed, but the bet gets through. Jack Deuce is pretty bad. And so now we're basically the shortest stack at the table, alongside the player to our right. Is our big blind's different, maybe 2. So they're going to probably steal. They're going to steal very frequently. Question is, can we re-steal? Because if we bet something like 440 and they shove, we have to fold. If we shove, then they could be calling quite wide. If we call, we're only really hoping to hit a jack or some funky flush. So I'm just going to let that one go rather than getting fancy. Fancy play syndrome burns bankrolls. Proven fact. So last time we raised blind versus blind and it got through, and then immediately after we raised the button and he restole. And so we are 1 for 2 on steals from this player. We could limp, because King High's probably better than what he's holding. We can min raise, minimise our losses if we do get re-raised. I'm going to limp. Mix it up. Not taking this too seriously. But limping's 84 more. No, take it. So limping's probably terrible there, and I know it, but I'm just having fun. So it's do as I say, not as I do, I think, is what they say about these kinds of situations. Apologies. Wrong window. So in 1 minute, the blinds will be 40-80 with a 5 ante. And so that's going to mean that we have 15 big blinds, and we will start to be in shove fold territory, which is not exactly ideal given that we've really not had a hand or had a good spot so far. But we just have to pick our spots wisely. Don't do anything stupid is often one thing that you can always say to yourself, and whether it's at poker table or in the big wide world, is always good advice to not do something stupid unless you're a slapstick comedian. Pretty much. So don't do stupid things is a wise words of wisdom I heard somewhere a long time ago, and sticking by it generally seems to do me well. So at this phase, what I'm thinking of doing, because when we're not in hand, it's a little bit quiet, not too much going on, we will get our lobby, find a $7 turbo 50-50, reg for that, and then we'll have 2 tables on the go in a few moments. That's... what lobby is that? It's not certainly my lobby. That's one lobby, that's another lobby. That's King 6, which is still not great. And so we will tile these tables. Hopefully that's big enough that you can still see everything. And so the game on the right is exactly the same as the game on the left, apart from the fact that the blinds are going to move a little bit faster, and by a little bit faster, exactly twice as fast. So blinds on the left hand side table last 6 minutes, blinds on the right hand side table last 3 minutes. And so it's just going to be less hands per level, more variance, less rake. Let's see how it goes. But hopefully we'll have more spots to talk about, which would be nice. Do we recognise any players on both tables? I don't think so. No, none that I can see. I think this is terrible, but I might limp here with 6-9 under the, on the small blind as well, on the off chance that we can flop the world. 8 would be the world. If they want to throw an 8 out there on the turn, if nobody bets, then we will certainly attack this pot very aggressively. 4-1 is not good enough odds, but I think if we catch an 8, no one's going to put us on 6-9 and we could get paid, and I'm feeling gambly, so let's do it. Jack does not help. Obviously 8-9 now I've got there, and we will be playing catch up. But now for 6-1, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 8, yeah, 6-1. We're going to go along again, And now we have a pair of sixes and the flush draw came in. He could check behind with like ace-king because he limped earlier. He flopped a 10 and so was not all that strong, but oh well. Hopefully we'll get that loose image and then people will give us credit when we do have it. Let's think of it that way. In other news, in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1, 2, 3 weeks, I will be in London for the United Kingdom Ireland Poker Tour, which coincides with the EPT European Poker Tour in London, which is being spread between the Hippodrome Casino in partnership with PokerStars and the Connaught Rooms. I think that's how it's pronounced, the Connaught Rooms, something like that. Big fancy function place in London. And I will be playing the £220 9 PM Thursday night of the 16th Turbo Deep Stack No Limit Texas Hold'em Deuces Wild. So I've been studying up on some of the math and I suppose theory of Deuces Wild, because apart from the wild card games I've played as a student in home games and stuff, obviously never played anything formally as a wild card game, but I'm certainly very excited about that, and just generally being in London for 4 weeks. This guy's got way more chips than us and can bully us, so we're just going to let him bully us without even giving him the opportunity to do so. Kings! Look at that! Look how pretty that is. Now let's hope we get action. I'm hoping it folds to us, we can min-raise and get one of these guys to overbet on us. But given that we now have 4 times this bet behind, we are just going to shove. Probably folds round, but I don't think calling. We could call and have 750 behind, which is like a 1.5 times pot bet, if not just about a pot size bet. But I don't know. I've shoved now. No ace. It's a good start. Continues to be good. And that's great. So you wait for a spot and you get paid, which is nice. But as I was saying, I'll be playing Deuces Wild. And so all the only differences between that and regular Hold'em is, of course, the deuce can qualify as any card, whether it's 1 deuce in the hand or any number of deuces on the flop. 5 of a kind is a legitimate hand at showdown. It is only beaten by a royal flush, but does beat a straight flush. What else? If you get dealt pocket deuces, you don't get to play the hand, you just table it during the deal and you win the blinds and antes. That is because having pocket deuces means you can't lose, which removes the skill element of the game. Some would argue that there is skill in extracting value from your opponents when you have the absolute nuts. But that's how the tournament directors have decided to rule that one. And yeah, it should garner around 200 players from what I gather. And so I'll be playing that on Thursday night in 3 weeks. I'm very excited. It's a reasonably small buy-in event as live goes, because as a working professional, part-time, casual poker player, I'm not massively rolled for things like 1K events, because I would never possibly stand a chance at cashing in a 1K event anyway, at least not a Hold'em one. But I think because it's a Deuces Wild game, I think the field is going to be so fishy, because people are going to go, oh, Deuces Wild, that sounds like fun, and just spunk off money, not really knowing what's going on, not having thought about the considerations and ramifications of how the game should be played differently, what to be taking into consideration and so forth. And so I've been putting some decent thought into that for the last month, and while that certainly won't necessarily mean I'm definitely going to cash, because Lord knows that's not how it works, but hopefully it will put me in slightly better stead than those that just rock up and go, oh, that looks like fun. Really glad I got water, because talking this much really dries out the face. Not just the mouth, the whole face. Somebody do something. I want a hand. This is why cash is so much better. There's more stuff going on, generally, I find. I'm more invested in cash, put it that way. So we still haven't had any more eliminations on our first table. The blind's now actually 50-100 with a 10 ante, so I entirely glossed over the 40-80 level. And so that means currently we have 22 big blinds. If you don't know, there is also a number in poker that people use to work out various elements of strategy called M. And M is the number of orbits you could survive if you just paid the blinds and antes and nothing else. And so at the moment, the small blind's 50, the big blind's 100, and there's 80 in chips in antes. And so after we fold all of our trash, you would say that it's 150 plus 80 is 230. And we have 2236 divided by 230. We have an M of 9.7. And so if we just didn't do anything and just folded every hand we received, provided of course the blinds didn't go up, which they would by that point, we could watch the button go round 9 times and still be alive at that point. Ace for a sweat. Oh, 9 is just as good. And so queens obviously make a straight there, but they were ahead when they got the money in anyway, so don't really feel bad for Veslin. Queens were really far ahead of King 9, and then he hit one of his 3 outs, and then Bussy caught one of their outs to recatch. We do steal there. If they'd have shoved for 700, I would have folded Jack High. It's just not good enough to be getting involved with. I don't know all of... There is lots of very technical math about when you should call, when somebody shoves, and I can't even remember what the dude's name is. There's a chart for us. It's not Sklansky, is it? God. There's a push-fold chart for all indecisions, where depending on how many big blinds you have, are you calling the bet, or are you are you shoving, or are you calling somebody else's shove? I am entirely blanking on what that chart is called. But if you want to find out, you can Google it and just Google push-fold charts, and you'll find it, I'm sure. Let's have a little look. Poker push-fold chart, push-fold strategy. Queen Jack is not terrible, but unfortunately, the thing you have to remember here is Queen Jack is only Queen High, so we're losing to any pair, any Ace High, any King High. The only real hands that we can be beating are Queen 10, Jack 10, 10 9, and that's it. So Queen Jack gets mucked. I cannot find the name of this chart, and it's annoying me. Okay, I'm just... Oh! Nash charts. That's it. Yeah, the Nash equilibrium strategy, I believe, is what I'm thinking about, where there's a calculation for the number of big blinds you have versus the number of big blinds they're shoving, and what the effective stack is, and what your hand value is, and stuff like that. And so if you want to learn more about that, don't listen to me, go and read up on the Nash equilibrium, and you should learn something more than what I know, because again, I am lazy and I can't read, so all those poker books and blogs and stuff completely lost on me. They don't teach us words at school here in England. Pocket deuces, not really deep enough to set mine. under the gun, not under the gun, small blind first to act after the button. I'm just going to let it go. Calling, you're only hoping to hit a deuce, and we're not deep enough to make that a viable plan. Ace King on the button, however, much shinier. King 9, fold over here. And so now we have a decision. Do we call 210 and hope to hit an ace or a king and then reevaluate pre-flop, or do we jam? And the way I play is I'm more inclined to call, because at the moment we only have ace high, and so I can call, miss, and fold to my opponent's c-bet and not put myself at risk for my whole stack. Pocket queens over here we will be raising. We're not deep enough to warrant worrying about shoving yet, but we will make it 300. Not quite 3x, that's too much. Generally the later in the tournaments you get close to min raising, but there's quite a lot of value in the antes as well, and so I want to make my bet slightly larger. Queen high flop is terrible. We expect to see a c-bet from our opponent now. Our queen bet gets through. They check, and so either they've just given up because they've missed as well, or they are trapping with a queen, and so we're going to bet reasonably small, enough that if he shoves on us here on the flop we can still fold and be alive. But they fold, and so they completely gave up on that hand, and we take it away. So seeing, oh, now we're getting all the hands. So let's go back to this flop. So there's 570 in the pot, 240, pocket sevens. Again, this is obviously a big hole in my game. I don't know what I should be doing with small pocket pairs when we're relatively shallow stacked, and I'm just going to wait for better spots. Yeah, so here I'm not so much concerned about with the size of the bet I'm making, but how much money I have left behind. And so I want to bet enough that my opponent doesn't think, oh, it's so small, I'm always going to come along. Because if we had bet something like 150, maybe like 200, he'd be getting 4 to 1. He might think, oh, I'll come along with my 9-7 and see what can happen. Whereas we want to be betting as big as we can without putting ourselves at risk. And so I make it 350 because we still then have 760 behind that we can fold if we get shoved on by a trickier player. But in this instance we do manage to just get our opponent to fold, and we know that they are now a weak player that is going to, let's put a note on, raises, fold 9-6 against shoves. Let's just watch what happens here then. We've got a raise to 2 and a bit x, a shove, an overshove, another overcall. Go on, do it, it'll be funny. Go on. No, you want to. He folds 10s versus queens, fairly standard. Queens will win. We lose another player. And so Bussy is very happy with themselves at the moment, because they're going to be big winner in this when we lose one more player. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2 more players. If they survive 2 more players getting knocked out, they have a massive stack. They're going to win loads of chips because of the way the payouts work. Raises in middle position after under the gun. Limps. Does not c-bet dry board. I know it's not the driest of boards, but I would call that a dry board. I'm going to min raise. My biggest concern is that the small blind shoves on us. I don't think they're going to do that too often, because they generally need to have a hand to do so. But if they did, I would probably fold rather than look them up for 1,000. But our min raise gets through, which is nice. Fold 5-8. Raises in middle position after under the gun limps. Does not c-bet dry board of queen 7-4 diamond diamond, folds folds to flop bet out of position. So not that we're terribly likely to play with that guy again, but good information nonetheless. Fold the trash. And so we're quite comfortable on table 1 at the moment. If I grab up my lobby again on the other screen, the next level is going to be 100-200 with a 25 ante. I presume the next hand's going to actually the next hand will be 75-150 with a 20 ante, and then we'll have 6 minutes of the next level after that. 5 for a chop pot. Nope, Jack's going to get that. So now Bussy C is just obviously dominating. And so we'll fold. V5-77 is a fairly easy target to pick on because they are going to have to make a move at some point, and with 6 big blinds, that point's going to be very soon. At the moment, if the game ended right now, we would get about $10.50 for our $7 buy-in, which isn't too bad. We obviously get $6.60 just for finishing and 22 cents for every 100 chips. We got pocket queens on second table. Blinds have gone up quite considerably because it's obviously the accelerated turbo format. I'm not going to call this shove. I would probably fold quite a wide range of hands here, just because there's no money in coming 6th place at all. You just get nothing. And so why would I put myself at risk when there's so many other players that are likely to go out soon, when I'm at no risk now, especially with king high? That's an easy fold. Pokerfish goes all in, which is nice because we don't have to make a tricky decision for a 1500 stack. We can just call off 160. And again, queens versus tens. He needs running and he doesn't get it. We will pick up a decent pot there. I'm actually going to fold here. We could probably be a bit steely and try and win this 345. This is basically worth 70 cents, but I'm just going to fold because I would rather fold and see more hands than rather than do something stupid and get stacked for 1500 chips. We're getting really good price here on our deuces, even though it is a pair and we're effectively set mining. I think we can win this some of the time. Fold that, obviously. So we're beating any kind of like Broadway hands. The way he checks back suggests he probably has something like King Queen or Broadway cards that aren't any kind of a real threat to us unless they pair, and so we managed to take that down. We would like to see an ace or a deuce, please. Does not come in, so now Pachos is the at-risk player just by the numbers. Which we don't mind terribly because Bussy has position on that player, which means they can be nice and aggressive, because one of the things that it holds more true in a traditional double or nothing tournament rather than a 50-50 where they have that staggered price structure. But in a standard double or nothing tournament, so long as my opponents are taking the chips of my other opponents, I don't mind, so long as they're not taking my chips. That is to say, I don't mind if Bussy C keeps stealing every one of Pachos' blinds, because he's getting close to 0 and the equity is the same for everybody. Not true in this situation. Obviously we need chips to keep our money back in order to cash, but with regards to like things like satellites as well, if you've got 4 players left in a satellite and 3 places pay, I don't care if the first seat is taking money from the 4th or the top rank. The player with the most chips is taking money from the player with the least chips, and I'm not receiving those chips because it's about the balance of everybody at the table and not just me versus them. It's more of a dynamic going on, and I did again, terrible job of explaining that. I'm far better at explaining the rules of deuce to 7 and what my thought process is there, rather than all these great big meta subjects. There's a reasonably large raise at this sort of point in a tournament. It is a 3x blind raise, which is relatively traditional in the standard sense of the game back in 2007, 2008, when everybody was making it 3x. But generally, the shallower you get, you open for slightly less than that, because he's in for 376. That's really interesting, because we can call and have 1600 left, and if we win, we obviously win enough that we're getting more chips, but if we lose, we're basically breaking even if another player busts. We're going to do it because it's 2 big blinds. It's probably a correct play, and if we can just hit a jack or a deuce, it's not a diamond, there's a deuce, and we get those chips. So we can see the pay scale in the comments box. Bussy wins the tournament and finishes with $19.57. That was the very, very large stack. Poker Inc. was somewhere else at the table, and there's us. GothicLordUK finishes the tournament in 3rd place and receives $12.38, minus our $7 buy-in is a profit of $5.38. And so if we go back to that last hand, so this spot here, when it folds round, at this point here, when it's been folded round and he shoves on us, he's shoving on us for 2 big blinds, and we're already invested for 75, and so it is actually 2 big blinds on the nose minus 1 chip. And so pretty much when we call, unless he does have something like aces or aces, kings, queens, like over pairs, or really any pair, because one of the cards we hold is a deuce, we still have like 35% equity against 2 overs, which is what he had. And so for the money that we're going to win when we do win, I can't remember what the exact math is, but basically the smaller the amount that you're calling for, the worse the hand you can call with is. So you can have 7 deuce in this spot, but because he's only betting 2 big blinds, calling is still correct because of the amount of equity you have. And I'm sure somewhere there's a page that will explain that far better than I will, but I've read enough on the subject to know that that is a correct call, I believe. I'm sure people in the comments will tell me otherwise, and if it's constructive criticism, I'd be more than happy to find out. Here, this is a slightly different situation. It's about the exact same situation. We've got Jack Deuce against a shove for 2.5 big blinds this time, but it's only 1.5 more to call. If he gets knocked out, then we win, and we win the money that's in the middle. And so we are going to call for 310 more. Ace 9, we need any jack, any deuce, we need any jack, we need any jack 7 or queen. Queen gives us a straight. And so almost the exact same thing happened in that hand, funnily enough, as happened in this hand. In this instance, we can only have one replay up at a time, which is fairly annoying, but if we go around to here, he's shoved for 510. After everybody else folds, it is 310 more to us in order to call, and in this instance we're getting better than 3-1 on the money, and so we only have to win this 33% of the time in order to be showing a profit. And Jack Deuce versus Ace 9. If you give me one very quick moment, I can do the equity on that. Let me find the app on my phone. So it's Ace of Spades and Nine of Hearts versus Deuce of Hearts and Jack of Spades. And so we actually have 34.92% equity to win. And so that's more than 1 in 3 times, and so it is a correct call to make, even though we know our opponent probably has a superior hand to Jack Deuce. We are winning enough chips when we win to make it a correct call. There's also the consideration that knowing that if we do win the 1200 in the middle, then this player is at risk and knocked out, and there's only the 5 players remaining, which means the game ends then immediately, and we would have a 3k stack rather, or a 3.5k stack rather than a 2k stack going into the end, which means we're obviously winning more money. And so in that game we won $14.21, which is a little bit more than $7 profit, because the rake is less in the turbo games because they don't last as long. But ultimately, that was a really good showing for two 50/50s. We cashed in both reasonably well. We didn't just crawl over the line with a really pitiful chip stack in either case. I hope you enjoyed that video. Hopefully it wasn't too long. 56 minutes, so almost exactly an hour. I apologise for the incoherent ranting and the non-specific advice I offered in some places that I'm sure there is better materials on if you wanted to learn about such things. But I will post this video as a post on Reddit in the poker subreddit, and I will link to that subreddit in the comments in the description of this video, and we can carry on a conversation about it over there. But other than that, thank you very much for watching. The next one of these I do is going to probably be a draw game or some kind of funky Omaha variant, but I hope you enjoyed this. It's been fun making it, certainly, and so until next time, I've been GothicLordUK, and this has been Reddit Requests Season 1, massive air quotes. Bye for now.